dealing with coaching for so many years. And she's also coaching under 14 up to under 18 and senior team women being represented in the national championship. Brigena is also a national team player, and she's also dealing with young team, youth teams, mostly girls. Glenny also taking care of under 10 up to under 16. Any former national team player and also coach of senior team first division men. Gary, because they are having masks and now I cannot recognize directly their faces. So Gary is from a coach from my hometown, and he's taking care of youth teams also. Julio from my hometown, taking care of youth teams, and Enea is the representative, the CEO of the most recent in Albania, Goka Basket. It's very famous now and very fancy and trendy in Albania. So maybe he's the one to have more questions with you. No, is former national team player, assistant coach of national team, senior man, and also participants. Very, let's say, persuasive person of following clinics, coaching clinics. Team Chachi is also having a basketball academy under his famous father name, because he used to be a very famous basketball player, national team, and also a coach. Antoni is okay, so for player of Bosnia team, player of senior team men taking place in Superliga of Albania, and also he's taking care of some coaching practices. Verderbi Verbica, he is also a former national team player, now dealing with. Andy Lazimi is administrator and also part of famous also academy in Albania, Marsi Basket. They mostly deal with young ages, so they are the right person to be here then taking notes. Dario is coming from the same team, Erkan. Erkan is a former national team player, but a very famous one in Albania, and he is also taking care of Karai Basket Academy. He is running it for 2 years now, and very interested to be here and take knowledge, whatever you are going to speak up about. So that's it, and me with the Minnesota t-shirt, already my transition team.
All right. I'm sorry. I'm trying to catch up with some of the sound. It's a little off, but I think I got that. You introduced everybody in the group.
Yes.
Excellent. Well, I think for me, first off, I want to thank everybody for taking their time during a very challenging pandemic for all of us to come and learn and at least try to connect the dots so you can improve your program. Um, again, my name is George Ellis. I'm currently the director of the Basketball Academy with the Minnesota Timberwolves and Lynx. I'll just give you a little bit of quick background about myself. I played what we would call American high school basketball here in the United States. Then I went to play college basketball at the University of St. Thomas in St. Paul, Minnesota. And then my basketball story is a lot different from a lot of people's. I actually didn't go into anything close to basketball right after college. I went straight into the corporate world into sales. And then after a learning experience and an opportunity to learn from different companies, I decided to go into coaching in about 2010. So I've been in coaching and training for about 10 years or 10 years or so, 11 years or so. Um, so, I coached, little kids, middle school basketball, all the way up to American high school basketball. I was very, very fortunate to learn under a Hall of Fame basketball coach here in Minnesota. And I was a part of a program that won a state championship, which is a big deal in Minnesota for the high school level. I also coached 1 year of what we call junior college in the United States, if you're familiar. And then after junior college, I managed a basketball facility where essentially I helped to design and develop and build the basketball facility from the ground up, and then run the programming as well. And then after that, now I'm here with the Timberwolves and Lynx and running all of their programs. So, um, and for me today, I think for me, this is more about you than me. I'm just here to share information and pass information along that will hopefully help build and grow the game within the country. One thing that I've been really excited about is just international basketball development. And so I've been to Turkey 3 times to run with some of you may be familiar with Arzu Ozit, who's I believe at right now um, she manages the women's. I think she's the general manager at Fenerbahce, if I remember correctly. And then she was a very decorated national team women's player, and she actually was the national team general manager for a while. And then so I've done and directed clinics in Turkey 3 times, in Istanbul, Datça, and Ankara, and then in Africa, I've been to Africa twice as well. So I love international basketball. I love growing the game internationally. I just, I think we get really spoiled in the United States because you've got, pretty talented players that have a lot of access to a lot of things. So in I think there's if you live in the city in the United States, there's probably a basketball court probably every mile, um, either indoor or outdoor. There's a basketball court, and so access to basketball facilities in the United States is very prevalent, and that's one of the reasons why the game is so popular here. And then it's also one of the reasons why players are talented here, because they just have access to being able to play everywhere. Um, I think also we do a pretty good job of coaching and coach development. I think, when you look at kind of the sphere of the United States, Canada does a really, really good job, and Australia as well. They do a really good job of really just developing players rather than kind of recruiting the best. Um, so I think that's kind of one of the reasons why, there's just been a big emphasis on basketball development from a coaching perspective. And we have some very, very good coaches here as well. I think for me, and obviously you all are experts, different areas. I think for me, coaching, number one, just in terms of why I coach, coaching to me is really to cultivate champions for life. That's kind of my personal mission. And so when we think about coaching young people, one of the quotes says that a coach will impact more people in their life than most people will in their entire lives. And so as coaches and as academy directors, you have the ability to shape and to impact people tremendously, much more than anybody else would. And you won't get nearly paid enough for all the work that you're going to do, for all the time and effort that you're putting into kids and families and things like that. Um, in terms of coaching, I think one of the most important things that you have to absolutely have, and you must solidify, is your vision, who you are, why you coach, and really what your program is all about. I think some of the best coaches, some of the best academies start with that first. They have a vision, they know their plan, they can execute on that plan, and then from there, they can continue to track it and measure it and create winning. Winning is a little different from everybody. Sometimes it's winning in the box score, and other times it's just teaching players how to be better, teaching players how to be better citizens, community members, etc. But I can't stress enough how important having your own personal vision of why you coach is. I think as you continue to climb success, if some of you want to learn in the United States and you want to be competitive with some of the coaches here, that has to be very unwavering, and you have to know exactly what that is and be able to articulate that at any time to anybody that's looking to hire or looking to put you in a position maybe that's elevated in terms of where you are, or even in an academy setting. You're going to have parents that aren't happy with what you do and some of the decisions that you make, and you have to be back. You have to be able to go back to who you are, why your program exists, and what's the most important. Because a lot of times parents get emotional and they want the best for their children, and a lot of times they don't see other children and the bigger picture. And so to be able to go back on the vision of why you really created the organization and what's most important will really help you navigate through some challenging situations, maybe with unhappy parents or maybe unhappy general managers or players or whoever you faced that might pose a little bit of difficulty, if that makes sense. Rather than me continue to go in and talk too much, I think I just kind of wanted to start with that. I want to, I guess, open it up for questions as to how I can help, or what you guys would like to know or see, or how I might be most beneficial to the group. And I don't know, Denisa, if you disappeared or if you're still there.
No, I'm here. No, they are just listening right now, so they want to have a picture of how is academy built in the United States reality, and how these programs are operated and managed in regard to the vision they have. You can talk specifically for Minnesota Academy, so what's the main goals, target group, and resources, recruitment, and championing to the success.
Absolutely.
So you can share your experience, and by coming up with the ideas and maybe common things, maybe, I'm just saying maybe, so we can come up with the questions and comments.
Okay, that sounds good. Well, just to give everybody some background, so the Minnesota Timberwolves and Lynx Basketball Academy is has been around probably for the last 10 years or so. And really the purpose is two things. Number one, the first purpose is to grow the game of basketball. And when I say grow the game of basketball, that means get younger kids playing at an earlier age so that we can influence how they develop. And, I think that, obviously, even in your own academies, you've got to make a decision on if you want to develop older players or if you want to develop and start younger. I always like the idea of having an academy that creates opportunities at every single level. So I think that if you can build your academy with younger players that learn your system, learn your way of playing, and then you continue to essentially create that ladder that allows them to elevate to the next level. Over a long period of time, you're going to have a large group of players and parents that champion what you do and what you're about and what your program is all about. Obviously, that's a lot of work, and you have to have either a lot of coaches that understand how to work with, maybe a very talented player that maybe could be on a national team, or a player that's just getting started learning how to dribble. But I think for the, long-term sustainability, you want to build, that complete program if you possibly can. For us, we've run programs, and primarily our programs have been catered to what the NBA, kind of by the mandate and the suggestion of the NBA, and really focusing on players from 8 to 12. And so essentially, our goal is to influence those players at a younger age. So eventually, as they matriculate into the older ages, they'll be more equipped and better. And obviously, the better we can teach them at a younger age, the better the players will be at the NBA and WNBA level. So we want to be able to have the influence and train those kids up the right way, coach them the right way, provide them with the right resources. And if we do that the right way, then, you would hope that the cream always rises to the top, and that the more talented players will continue to develop, and you'll just have better, hopefully more LeBron James and more Maya Moores and those types of players that are a little bit more talented and that can do some things. The second thing, and the second reason why, and it's really more of a business reason, that we have an academy, is essentially to develop a relationship with the basketball community. So if you look at most NBA and WNBA teams, about 50% of their fan base is comprised of former basketball players or current basketball players. So if we can build a pool of a large base of players, then a lot of times those players will support the program and support the team. So they'll come out to the games. They'll want to engage with the players, and essentially we're cultivating fans of the game. A little bit more about our program. We serve about 7,000 kids per year. And those players are anywhere from age, I'd probably say age 7, all the way up to age 18, 17, 18. And we run various programs throughout essentially the upper Midwest. So we run camps, we run clinics. We actually started getting into events. So we run tournaments so we can influence the tournament space and create a better experience for players when they are playing. And then we also have specialty kind of experiences with our Timberwolves and Lynx players. We have more elite experiences where we have the more talented players come to our practice facility, and we'll do things like leadership development, on-court skill development, video to breakdown and analysis. And those are with our academy coaches, and then with our Timberwolves and Lynx coaches as well. We have essentially internally 5 full-time staff members, and then we have 40 part-time coaches as well that work with our players essentially all over the Twin Cities and the upper Midwest. Our program is very, very busy. We actually run about 100 events a year. And so those are camps, clinics, tournaments. We have games at the Target Center before every Timberwolves and Lynx game. And then we have different programs within different communities around the upper Midwest. Sometimes up to as far as 8 hours away, we'll run programs in different areas as well. So we have a really good relationship with the coaches in the Minneapolis area as well. So I think in building an academy, obviously you need top tier, top level coaches. And so obviously I can't do it alone. We need to have coaches that are very qualified, that do a good job. So we build relationships with coaches, and essentially some of those coaches are a part of our staff during certain times of the year. And then other times those coaches are really championing our program to help us to work together to grow the game of basketball. So that's a little bit more about kind of what we do. Essentially at the NBA level as well, the NBA's got different priorities that we align with. And so the NBA, essentially, as I kind of talked about, they want to see the game of basketball growing from a global perspective. So, the NBA has a bunch of different initiatives that they've got going on locally within the Twin Cities, nationally within the United States. And then as you're starting to see, the NBA is more broad. They're starting to advance more internationally, where they've got more elite academies, where they're identifying and finding players that are potentially W or NBA players in the future, and starting to develop those players as well. And then they also have, essentially kind of youth academies that are really designed to get kids playing, grow the game, build facilities, provide equipment, so kids can start to play in a healthy and safe and more productive way. Perfect case in point. When I go to Africa, usually I go to East Africa and Tanzania, which is below Kenya. There is a partnership with the corporation there, and they built a really beautiful campus, outdoor basketball facility there that the NBA has partnered with the local city and corporation to essentially run the academy full time. And essentially, there's 200 or 300 kids that are a part of that academy, that they provide programming daily, and provide the resources and pay staff essentially to run that. And that's a country of 50 million people, and I bet you there's probably maybe 10 indoor basketball courts in that entire country with 50 million people. So there's a lot of opportunity there. There's a lot of kids that don't even play, that have never even picked up a basketball, but a lot of them have phones or they've heard of the NBA or WNBA, and so the NBA wants to start to create an opportunity for those players and grow the game that way, in that country as well. So that's a little bit of there's a lot of other things that we're doing as well, just in terms of different initiatives, different programs. One of the things that we need to do from a league perspective is grow the girls' game of basketball. So if you look at the numbers in the United States, the girls' basketball participation is actually declining. It's going down. And so there's a lot of factors and a lot of reasons. Some of it is access. Some of it is the younger girls are intimidated by NBA players. If you've ever stood to Sylvia Fowles when she's standing next to me is taller than me. I think her arms are bigger than mine, and I can still dunk a little bit, but I bet you she might be able to jump as high as me as well. So you have women that are just very, very talented and strong and powerful, and some girls don't see themselves as that. And so, a lot of it is just helping girls understand that they can be that. They can be professional basketball players, professional athletes. And if that's something that they want to do, we want to continue to cultivate that and support them and grow the girls' game. So we partner with Nike on the Game Growers Initiative. And then we partner with the league on an initiative called Her Time to Play, which is specifically for girls players, to provide programs for them that are led by either WNBA players, coaches, or even on our staff, we have college players that played professionally overseas that I have on my staff that run those, so they can see very successful girls. So they are confident and feel empowered, and we can support them on that. So that's a big initiative that we're working on as well. That's really, really important as well. Can you guys still hear me okay?
Yes.
Everybody good? All right.
We're fixing the camera.
Okay.
To work out with the questions and then directing to you.
Okay. Nobody's falling asleep, are they?
We are keeping them cool here.
Okay.
atau jangan kan rating dash atau bias berpar atau privilege atau yang ceritakan bisa dengan informasi pasal sih.
Okay. So Kant wants to know specifically what happens in Minnesota Basketball Academy when you recruit young players. So how do you divide them? Is there any kind of grouping in regard to talented players and basketball for fun or basketball for future career or becoming professional? So how do you divide this and how you proceed by grouping them? So what's the selection stages?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's a little different for us in our academy, and I'd probably more speak towards just some of the experiences that I've had outside of our academy, in another one of our other academies that I started as well. That's kind of a challenge that I think that a lot of people have, a lot of coaches and a lot of academies have in terms of really how do you separate players that are just starting from players that are more advanced, more talented, and more serious. I think, what we utilize is we utilize technology when we're registering players for our programs. We segment players utilizing the technology of our registration process. So we ask players how much experience that they have, how long have they been playing basketball, on a scale of 1 to 10, how serious are you, with 10 being, I want to be a serious basketball player, I want to play in the American high school or college. We also in Minnesota have what we call youth basketball associations, and essentially they're kind of essentially they're academies as well, but they're hyper focused to a community, and those programs are separated by what we call in-house and traveling. In-house meaning players that maybe are younger, that maybe don't have as much experience, and that want to play locally. And then we have traveling basketball players that essentially are more advanced and they want to play in other areas or other communities against other players that are just as talented or more talented. Um, so I think in terms of grouping, you've got to, a lot of times you've got to ask the parent to give you some honest feedback as to where those particular players' skills are. And I know that a lot of players, at least a lot of parents here within the United States, they believe that their player is going to be the next Michael Jordan, which is not possible. So you really have to rely on the parent to help. And then if you're essentially evaluating those players, what you need to do is you need to create a scale, or some sort of method or metric as to how to separate those players in terms of skill and ability level. So, and I always say when you're evaluating talent and evaluating players, in the United States, we do a thing where during a tryout process, a lot of the other academies that are running teams, they have scales 1 to 10. Okay, player can dribble at this proficiency level. Player can dribble at an 8 proficiency level or a 3 proficiency level. What I think is more important is to really group those, and I don't have it with me, but I had essentially a rubric that I kind of created essentially to evaluate players, and it's really more focused on gosh, I can't even don't even have it in front of me, but I'll share it with the group. I'll send it to Zanisa to send it out to everybody. But essentially what you need to do is really figure out what your rubric is going to be. And then, I think in terms of age, and every country is different, right? I like to group players that are, and obviously, 6 to 8 is a good grouping in terms of age. I think 8 to 11, or excuse me, not 8 to 11 if there's some overlap, or 9 to 11 is a good overlap. And I think once you get to age 12, 12 and 13 can kind of go together. and then 14 and above can go together as well. So 14, 15, 16-year-olds sometimes, because you're going to have some 14 and 15-year-olds that are just really, really advanced that can compete with 16-year-olds, right? So, everybody's is going to be a little bit different, but, I think that whatever it is, you want to get that on paper and really solidify what that's going to be. And then when you're having your tryouts or when you're recruiting your players, recruit those players in those categories. And then if there's exceptions that you need to make to move a player up to a different level, you just make those players, you make that decision as the leader of the organization. But if you don't have that scale, then parents are always going to be wondering, well, why is my son or daughter in this level when they should be really in this level? And I think what you really want to do more than anything is define, and it's really more for you internally, define what you're looking for players within those age ranges. So if I'm a player that's 13 years old, I need to be able to shoot with great form. I need to be able to ball handle, and I need to be able to understand how to make decisions within the game. Obviously, there's different levels of that, right? There's certain kids that are just more talented. They just get it. They see the game differently. But you at least need to define that on paper so it makes sense, if that answers your question.
Ну-ка, две начала.
Okay, so what happens with the basketball?
Denise, I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question? The signal cut out a little bit. Can you repeat the question? Yeah, you cut out. Okay, yeah, I think you're good.
Yes, I'm repeating. So now we could speak of grouping and to sum it up in terms of skills and ages. Now we escape to another question, which is what are the financial resources to build up an academy? So contributing, am I right with the question? How does it go in Minnesota? So how do you start, or where do you get financial resources to build up an academy?
It's a great question, and I think that the answer is probably different. So it's different, I think, in my mind, from what I see about international development in comparison to what we do in the United States, in a way. So most academies within the United States, within most academies, the parents pay the bulk of essentially the resources to support the academy through participation or registration fees. So, for example, if you're playing in an academy on a team, you would pay a certain amount of dollars per season, and that fee would cover the cost of essentially running the program. Now, obviously, if you've got a lot of players, then that allows you to have a lot more resource to run your program. If you only have a few players, then it's going to be really tough, obviously, to run your program because you're going to have to charge so much more to the parents, and that might not be realistic for them. That's for kind of what we call club academies or club basketball academies, and very similar to our model here with the Minnesota Timberwolves and Lynx. So most of our programs are essentially pay to play. There's a registration fee, and essentially that allows us to be able to have the resources and funds to run the program. We also receive funds through, obviously our relationship with the Timberwolves and being able to have some additional funds from a larger organization like the Timberwolves and Lynx. What I would probably say, what other academies do as well, and this is really kind of unique to especially Minnesota, a lot of academies run their own events. So, and most of those events are tournaments. So, like in the United States or in Minnesota, we have some youth basketball organizations that run tournaments that have 300 teams or 500 teams or 100 teams. And obviously, those teams pay a registration fee. And then, obviously, that registration fee helps to run the event and the tournament. Um, if you can, within your academy, figure out a way to run some sort of events, like a tournament, like a showcase game, or if you're connected to a larger, a larger professional team, something that aligns with them as well. A lot of times, those will bring in additional dollars that you can utilize to support and run your program. So, outside of the Timberwolves and Lynx Academy, we have about 100 youth basketball associations within the Minneapolis and St. Paul Twin Cities metro area. And those are community-based team programs that have anywhere from 100 players all the way up to 2,000 players that play within those programs. And those players are on a team, they get a jersey, they have a coach, a little bit different from our program and our program, because our program is more camp-based, training-based, and so on. Almost every one of those associations runs their own tournament every year. And they use that tournament as their fundraiser to either support their program or to provide additional resources that they need to provide scholarships for players or to buy jerseys or to pay for gym time and gym space. We've even had and seen communities use the funds that they've received for running their tournaments. They've saved that money over the course of 5 to 10 years, and they've actually built basketball facilities with those resources as well. So if you can get into some sort of events, and they don't have to necessarily be local events. If you have relationships with other countries, other regions, or other cities, and you can bring in teams that will play contests, and they'll actually pay to play in an organized event that's run really well. A lot of times that'll give you some of the additional resources and funding that you'll need to pay for your coaches, to buy jerseys, to run your program essentially the way that you want. Another thing that a lot of programs do, and what we have as well, is we have sponsors. So we have one presenting sponsor on the academy currently. It's a food brand, a pizza organization, a healthy pizza organization, and they provide some additional funds for our program. In exchange for them, what they need is they need a visibility from their brand to our participants and their family members. So during tournaments, we have their logos shown, just like you guys got logos in the background and signs. In our T-shirts and apparel, they get a patch in the corner. If you look at even the American college basketball system, the majority of funds that comes through to support college basketball and even the NBA comes from TV revenue, to be able to broadcast on television, and sponsorship revenue. Sponsorship revenue is going to be probably the second largest way of revenue that sports has. And you can do the same thing with sponsors. It might be a smaller local sponsor that has a grocery store, or somebody who owns a clothing shop, or if or have relationships with Coca-Cola or somebody like that locally, and you can start to develop those relationships. Sponsors want to know that your program aligns with their mission and vision and values, and that's why I go back to the importance of knowing who you are, what your academy is about. Because if you can align with a brand or a company that believes what you believe, you're serving kids at a high level and their families, and you can marry the two, then a lot of times that sponsor can really support a lot of the operations that you need, the financials that you need to support your operations, if that makes sense.
Okay. Now you get to the video and provide that.
Por causa de que pandemia the program seja nós.
How did so Enea Goga from the Goga Academy is asking how did the pandemic times affect in the academy, and how do you see the perspective of the, let's say, suspended activities and start recovering and restarting again, getting back in the form?
And the way to start safe.
And the way to start safe, the most crucial one.
That's a very, very important and pivotal question that all of us are asking right now. Quite honestly, the pandemic has been extremely challenging for all of us. If you're paying attention to the news, if you watch TV or just open, your phone, it's making sports extremely challenging for all of us. I think for us, we've really leaned towards being more safe than anything, especially being associated with a brand as big as the NBA and the Timberwolves. We have to be more safe, more cautious than anything, because we don't want to put any children at risk or any coaches. And obviously, we don't want to put ourselves in a position to be subject to any lawsuits because a child got sick, or a coach got sick or infested or anything like that. So we've had to be extremely cautious and really pivot in a lot of different ways. For us, really more than anything, we've waited and put all of our summer programming on pause, or essentially we canceled all of our summer programming, just to get a better idea of what's going on. We're very fortunate that we're connected to the world-renowned Mayo Clinic, which is actually one of our sponsors. So we've gotten a lot of advice from them as to, kind of what the steps are to kind of return to play, and that's still something that we're still learning. But we've canceled all summer programs and really kind of really tried to utilize the time to really evaluate our current programming and what we could be doing differently. And then obviously none of us know, when this pandemic will at least even have a vaccine that at least makes us feel a little bit more comfortable, right? So none of us know how long this is going to last. So we've really looked at what we do right now to say, okay, if this pandemic does last another year, another 6 months, another 2 years, what can we be doing to continue to move the game forward and to provide resource? And we settled on a couple of different things. A lot of it is based on virtual experiences, which for us, they work, in some ways they don't, because a lot of times, players either don't, maybe they're tired of doing virtually, workouts and things like that. It's just not the same having, instead of having a coach face to face that can feel and touch and bump and teach you how to get better. But so we've transitioned to virtual programming. So really looking at, can we provide virtual camps? Can we provide, personalized or individualized training virtually? We've also looked at the opportunity of even having socially distanced, smaller group workouts where we have players, in a gym. If we can get, in an ideal situation, players in a gym with, 6 to 8 baskets, where all the players have their own basket, all the players have their own basketball, players stay in their area. Nobody touches each other, obviously, no high fives, and none of all that stuff that we do as coaches and teammates. And then, what does that even look like? So we've talked about kind of what that does look like, and we're not, at this time, we're not as comfortable to be able to move forward with that yet. I know within, a lot of the basketball communities here locally, some have already started doing that. I'm more comfortable with sending maybe a coach to an outdoor space with 1 or 2 players. I think that's a little bit more manageable. I think being confined in a gym with, just what we don't know about how the virus can spread just through air, I think it makes it even a little bit more of a risky situation. But needless to say, I've seen, programs that have already started doing that with coaches with face masks and things like that. So we really paused on all of that. But so virtual programming, I've got some of that written down. Virtual programming, we've really shifted to developing coaches and figuring out what we can do more virtually to develop our coaches. Socially distanced, maybe small group workouts with a certain number of players, and we'll, capping that player, or just doing one-on-one developing and training with players. And then, that's kind of the majority of what we really focused on right now. Personally, I don't think that we're going to do anything live or in person. Probably we might maybe in the fall do some things where we do some kind of outdoor activities, but I don't see us doing really any indoor activities probably until the beginning of the year, maybe even into the spring, just to be on the safe side if we absolutely can. Now, it would be different if we had like our own facility, and in terms of our facilities, we utilize, facilities in different communities to run a lot of our programs. So those facilities aren't ours. So we would have to, we rent those, and then we're coming into somebody else's environment. I would be more comfortable if I own the environment and own the space, where I can control who comes in and out. I can control the cleanliness. I can control who has a mask and things like that. We do have access to our practice facility usually, but right now, obviously with the pandemic, and the players right now are doing a lot of their training, we just don't have access to the facility. So if I had my own facility, and I knew that I can control who comes in and out and things like that, then I would be more comfortable with, having protocols where everybody has a masks, no parents allowed or no parents involved, which sometimes can be a good thing if you got a lot of parents that have a lot to say. And then, just staying socially distant, staying at your own basket by your own self, everybody wearing a mask as much as possible, everybody having their own ball, frequent hand cleaning and things like that. I'd be more comfortable with that if we had our own facility. Hopefully that answers your question, sir.
Experienza virtuale è un tipo Marco Massa. Also, individual groupings. I have a question for you, Ellis.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm coming from the experience of being a basketball player, so you already know me. And my target lately is focusing mostly on gender-based projects, and we're still running with the hard work rules. So that is my main objective, let's say. Can you tell us some tricky things? What goes wrong on your academy and what goes best?
Is that more specifically in terms of girls or just in general?
In general. All the strategies that Minnesota Basketball Academy proceeds with, and it's oriented with.
In terms of just some of the challenges?
Yes.
Yeah. I think for us,
Besides the pandemic.
What was that? Besides for the pandemic?
Besides pandemic.
Yeah. No, we have a lot of different things that we have to navigate. Little things that you wouldn't even think about. And so, in my role, I really manage the operations of this entire thing. When you've got, 3 full-time people report to me, 40, part-time coaches, 100 events, what's really challenging is making sure that everybody communicates, and they communicate to let everybody know what's going on. So what I would say, one of the most important things in running an academy that you have to have, aside for a vision and a mission, is you've got to maintain constant communication with everybody involved. Your coaches, your players, your parents, your facilities, your administrators that are supporting you. If you've got sponsors, There's a lot of people that you need to communicate with on a regular basis, and you need to make sure that you do that the right way. And there's a lot of different ways you can do it. What I would suggest is maybe put together a newsletter that goes out either bi-weekly or once a month to just talk about some of the things that your academy is doing, so everybody is up to date and they know are always informed. Um, you also need to have your own internal calendar that you manage and master. So your staff, your coaches, they all know what's going on, where practices are, um, what players are going to be here as well. The more you can get organized and stay organized, the less headaches you'll have, and the more you'll be able to foresee what challenges might be up ahead. We, in my department, we work with a lot of different departments within our company. So I deal with our marketing department. I deal with our public relations department. I deal with our technology and business intelligence department. I deal with our facilities department. I deal with our corporate partnerships department. I deal with all these different groups that have their own agendas, their own ideas, and a lot of them think that they know more than me and our group in terms of how to develop and build a basketball academy. Sometimes that can be challenging. Um, Actually, Denisa, you're not recording this, are you? I don't want them to hear that. No, just kidding. Um, but sometimes that can be challenging. But the main thing that you want to make sure that you do is constantly, clearly communicate with everybody, so everybody knows what's going on, so nobody's in the dark, so nobody's lost. We have little things that we run into, like, for example, we run over the American Christmas holiday, a 5-day period. We run about, we run about 10 to 12 camps. And last year we had 1,000 kids registered for these 12 camps that we ran. And we had a weather issue. We had an ice storm. We had 10 different facilities that we were working out of, or 12 different facilities. We had an ice storm, and it was a really dangerous situation where we really couldn't, kids couldn't even get to the facility because there was so much snow and ice on the ground. So, what we had to do is we had to, communicate with all of those parents and call and email all of those parents at a really short notice. And really, it was the morning of, to let them know that those camps were canceled. What I would suggest, especially if you've got a larger group of players, you need to figure out how you can utilize technology best to communicate with your families and parents extremely efficient and as quickly as possible. So that might be Facebook. There might be some technology companies that allow you to send text messages to your parents so they know that practice is canceled or practice is moved. The more you can proactively communicate, I think the better that you'll be. Other challenges that I think that we have is just getting alignment with the broader basketball community. So we have, as I said, a lot of different basketball academies. How do we, as the professional team, partner with all of them to provide resource? And then how do we not overlap in what we're doing? How do we not compete with each other? And how do we all come together in some way, shape, or form to support each other? That's a big challenge, because everybody, some want to do things the way they want to do, which is fine. And then others see us as, the main professional team within the state, and they do want to partner with us. So how do we look at their programming, their schedule, and ours, and then how do we align to figure out, ways to partner with each other and work together? And we do a lot of that. We have existing academies that we go in and we enhance their experience through either expertise or access to what we can provide them, whether it's a player or a coach, or everybody likes Timberwolves gear, or coming to the game. or being able to come to our facilities and help educate players and parents and coaches about professional basketball and the NBA. So it's just, finding ways that we can align. Sometimes that's a challenge, but we do the best that we can to link up with like-minded organizations and coaches to figure out how we can grow the game together.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Another question.
Right, let's go. Let's hear it.
You said previously, you said that in your academy you have 7,000 children per year. That one is focused in one facility or in different facilities in your city?
Say that one more time, the last part.
So these thousands of players are coming at Minnesota facilities or in different facilities, basketball facilities, owned by Minnesota or either way?
Are the facilities owned by Minnesota? Is that was the majority of the question? Yeah, no.
Different places.
Yeah, so what we do is we really stretch our academy out to run programming in a lot of different communities. So I don't have a facility big enough to run. We don't own a facility big enough to run programs for 1,000 kids. But we primarily use, so it's really a combination. So we use our practice facility for some programs. We use the Target Center where the Timberwolves and Lynx play for other programs, and that's probably where we're able to serve the majority of the players. Well, actually, no, I'm not going to say that because we run a lot of camps and clinics outside of our facilities in other neighboring facilities that are owned by communities or the cities or the schools. A lot of our programs are run in those areas, and what we do is we try to hit a lot of different communities. So we might be in a community 5 minutes away from the Target Center where our team plays. And then we might be in a facility an hour away from where our team plays, where our offices are. So what we try to do is really stretch out our program into different areas. One thing that's nice about Minnesota in high schools, Minnesota does a really good job of developing facilities in the areas. So we have some high schools which serve players ages 14 to 18 that have 6 or even 8 court facilities in one building. And so we can run programs in those facilities and serve a lot of kids and families because they're just so large. We try to strategically partner with those groups and those communities because usually those groups they have a lot of kids that play basketball, right? Because if you've got an 8-court facility or a 10-court facility even, there's going to be a lot of players that naturally play just because you got basketball available all the time. So we try to reach out and use a lot of different facilities. There are some NBA teams that have bought, like the Golden State Warriors. Their youth department actually took over the Warriors' old practice facility when the new facility was built for the team. So they've got a beautiful 3-court facility that the youth basketball group manages, and they run their programs primarily out of, but they still even go outside of that facility and go into different communities and run programs as well, just because they've got so many different programs and camps and clinics going on in different areas. They just don't have enough space even in that 3-court facility that they have. So hopefully that answers your question.
What's the usual practice for young ages at Minnesota Academy? So how many times a week, and what's the session of training? What's the time of a training session?
Yeah, so I would say I would say our program is a little different because our program is more, we don't do, and essentially we haven't gone into the space where we're doing a lot of ongoing training yet to the same players over and over again. And that's primarily because, and that's kind of one of the challenges as well, you're competing with other academies in communities usually that have teams where those players are training with their team rather than with us. So traditionally, what I see, what's really typical in, depending on what the age level is, if you're dealing with working with the youth player that's probably, let's just say 11, 12, 13 years old, most of those players practice 2 times a week or 3 times a week for probably an hour and a half. And I'll tell you, that's not enough time personally. That's not, the frequency is not enough. And the challenge that we have here, and the reason why, is facilities. We just don't have enough facilities to give players more practice time, either per occurrence or more practice time during the week. So like, for example, in the community that I live in, the youth basketball organization that's the dominant program has 2,500 kids that operate within their program. In our community, there probably is, between the high schools, the extra facilities, there's probably probably like 12 basketball courts for 2,500 kids. So that poses a challenge where, as much as if I'm a coach and I want to practice every single day, I'm competing with other teams within our own community for practice time, essentially. So that's why you kind of see the typical 2 practices a week, or maybe 3 practices a week if you can really get it, for an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours at the most. That's probably the most that you'll see, unless somebody's got their own basketball facility in their house, which does happen too from time to time. It's just hard to get practice space, if that makes sense.
So our coaches here, I will make, let's say, an assumption and comments on regard, because already knowing the 2 realities, since I've touched the Minnesota Timberwolves reality, I would say that our coaches are big heroes because they don't have this kind of departments and sections dealing with, so everything to their communication is directly from them to the parents and kids. They don't have communication departments, recruitment departments, marketing departments, and whatever. So they deal, for sure, absolutely facilities. We are missing facilities. So if you say we are missing facilities, we are saying we are dramatically missing facilities. So in this regard, we are very of having them here listening and sharing their own experiences, while not tailoring and managing different perspectives on how they can proceed with their problems. It's great to learn as much as they can, but because of different obstacles and opportunities that not only also economical perspective, it's so poor, so they can grant only by their will and wish to develop basketball in the country. Mm-hmm. So we already know the reality, and there is a lot to do, absolutely. Their professional background is quite professional, but because of their daily occupations and dealing with everything, sometimes it escapes taking time to perfection. But anyway, so they are keeping alive basketball in Albania in different regions, different circumstances, and different finances.
And I just want to let everybody know that although although our situation is nothing in comparison to what you guys are experiencing, you know, when I first started coaching in my when I first started coaching, I coached for a school, and then after that season, I started my own smaller basketball academy, and we had it was me and a friend of mine. We didn't have a marketing department. You know, we started with like $300 to our name. We had to create our own website. We had to find our own jerseys, and we did essentially kind of the same thing. We started with 10 kids, and then we grew our program in 5 years from 10 kids that paid, that could afford it, and we had some kids that we scholarshiped all the way up to 110 kids in our program. And then he's still running the program now, and I think there's probably close to 200 kids in that program. And kind of same thing. We started at the very, very bottom. We were very fortunate because we had parents that were really supportive, that really loved what we were doing. They loved our approach to training and developing the kids. And then we were able to get access to facilities. We didn't own our own facilities, but we were able to rent facilities here locally, at least to run our program, and to have 2 practices a week for 2 hours with our players or so, and then be able to play games. I think and I've been to Africa where, in rural parts of Africa where, they're playing on a dirt court with iron hoop with no backboard and, no shoes and barely any basketball. So I've seen that and been in that experience as well. What I would really advise the group to do, and hopefully the Federation will help as well, and I think this is why, one reason why American basketball has continued to advance, you've got to figure out ways to work together. Even though that the most of the group here comes from different regions, different academies, different philosophies, how do you work together collectively to utilize your relationships, your experiences, to really, probably more than anything, first of all, build more facilities. And obviously they don't have to be indoor facilities to start, because those are going to be the most expensive. But, who knows a construction company? Who knows a company that can manufacture or input, baskets? Who knows the person that owns a clothing company that can manufacture jerseys? How do you bring your collective resources together to build a court in one region, and then build another court in another region, and then build a court in another region, to where you create some sort of agreements where everybody has access to those courts in that region to be able to run their program, even if it's a separate program, to really kind of grow the game collectively together. I think, it's going to take, folks working together. And then a lot of times it's conversations like this to try to network, to figure out, okay, what companies are there that maybe can support what you're doing there as well. I know at the league level, the NBA is very interested in developing basketball in other countries. They want to build more courts. They want to build more programs. But a lot of times it's having conversations and finding the groups of programs and coaches that are really, really serious, that are making a big investment. And a lot of times it's those conversations that continue to cultivate and happen. And then eventually you have, a company or the league come in and they build, those facilities to help, you guys run your program. So I know that the obstacles are big, and that sometimes it seems like it's really hard to do some of the things that you're doing. But what I would say, keep your dream alive. Put your dream on paper. If your dream is to build your own basketball facility, make sure you write that dream down and be very specific about what that looks like. How many courts, how many baskets, what is it? What does the front of it look like? And then as you start to share that vision with other people, I mean, it really only takes one person to make your dream become a reality. One person. And, you know, sometimes, you know, one of the quotes that I heard from Oprah Winfrey, if you guys know who Oprah Winfrey is, um, she said it only takes introduction to 12 people to get to any level of success that you desire. It only takes 12 people. You don't know who those 12 are, but you just need to have 12 of the right people in your circle to get to any level of success that you want to get to. And so, you know, a lot of times it's having that vision and reaching out to people. You know, if you're on LinkedIn, reach out to people. If you're on Facebook, reach out to people with that vision for what you want to do. And a lot of times it's just asking, you know, if you know the person that is wealthy, that has a boat, that has a business, say, hey, this is what we're trying to do. You know, this is what my vision is. This is what I see. And it almost, that vision should almost scare you. It's so big. And then share that with that person. And a lot of times, you know, people that are big thinkers like big ideas. And so if you come to a person with big ideas, a small idea, you know, a lot of times they won't think much of it because you're not thinking big enough. So, you know, it's the same thing with the NBA or these facilities. Somebody had a big idea and they put it on paper and they just kept talking to people about it. And eventually somebody either funded it or enough people came together that said that we can collectively put our resources together and make it happen. You gotta continue to dream and put those ideas on paper. And especially for you coaches that are former players that have a lot of influence. If you're an influencer in the basketball community, you're a professional player. If you're on a national team, if you can go outside and people know your name because you know, were really, really good at putting an orange basketball in an orange ring, you know, you got to start talking to people. You got to start selling yourself and your dream for what you're looking to do. And, you know, if you're that star in the community, people will support you, you know, but you had to be really good at articulating what you're trying to do and share that with everybody, if that makes sense. Hopefully that resonated with some people and it makes sense.
Can you please leave some homework for the federation?
Absolutely. Let me see. So, you know what a good book is to read, and I'm still reading it right now. Hopefully you guys like to read, is let me see. You need to read let me see. Let me just make sure I get the name right. So, I would suggest, and this is just really to help like visioning. So if you guys, there's a book called Shoe Dog, SHOEDOG, and it's written by Phil Knight, the owner of Nike, the founder of Nike. He wrote this book called Shoe Dog, and it's, you know, I started reading it and I thought it was really, really good because it helps you think bigger picture. And it gives you basically the whole story of how Nike was built. You know, he had an idea, he had a dream, and a lot of his thoughts and ideas came from his international travels. He basically traveled around the world to get ideas, and he eventually went to, I believe it was a Japanese company, helped to start to formulate the thought of the Nike shoe. Wasn't in the United States. It was in Japan or in China, if I remember correctly. But his ideas came from his international travels and his experiences in international relations and meeting people. That's your homework. If you can get that book, you can download it on audio, the audio programs. Read that book, and then if you can get a copy of it, share it with everybody. But the other thing that I would say is, as homework, write your vision down. Yes, that's it. That's it, Denisa. Read that book. It's a very, very good book. Yep. Write your vision down and then come up with 4 to 5 core values of non-negotiables of things that you believe that your academy is about, and that you'll not negotiate on what you stand for. So it might be you believe in teamwork. It might believe you believe in communication. It might be you believe in accountability. Whatever those core values are, write those down as well. And then what we'll do is we'll schedule a follow-up call, Denisa, so we can talk about vision, and then we can talk about core values, and then we can continue to figure out how we can navigate some of these challenges that the Federation is facing and that the coaches are facing. And then hopefully I'm gonna come out to Albania one day after this pandemic is over, and then we'll continue the conversation in real life.
Absolutely. You're more than welcome.
Right.
And I'm also coming for playoffs, I promise.
Let's do it.
Okay. Thank you so much, George. Much
You're
appreciated, everybody. So we're sending you Thai highs from here. High fives to everyone, and we will be in touch for sure.
Absolutely. And also, if you feel free to share my information with the group. If anybody has any questions or they want to reach out to me individually, more than happy to help and share my WhatsApp with the group as well. If anybody, you can always text me, and I'm more than happy to answer questions or get on a video call or whatever I can do to help.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
Bye.